Hi, everybody. So people like to do things like debate slavery and everything else as if there's something debatable about slavery being bad. So most of these people try and straw man or whatever you want to call it, false equivalency, push their bullshit views by latching onto a kernel of truth and then trying to make the argument of, oh, white people weren't the only people that enslaved others, which turns into a slippery slope of yes or no, or woke, or this is my heritage, and all of that bullshit. The problem is that when people actually know the full history of the world and more than just the history of a select timeline. The people like me try to mostly stay out of the bullshit because if we say anything, bullshitters going to bullshit and they're going to try and pile up more bullshit and put you inside their bullshit and wrap up that bullshit and fertilize their own farm where they get to grow some more bullshit. So that's basically the problem. However, I'm seeing a lot of people say the same stupid crap over and over and over and over and over, and I just want to throttle them. The thing is, slavery is older than recorded human history. All right, that's the first problem. At some point, every single major group in the world is guilty of it.
Jesus, here we go.
And sorry, I accidentally hit spacebar because I'm over here on the thing. The other thing is a lot of people who try to wrap up the bullshit try to get people in on their ideology, and then that makes it difficult to even talk about the bullshit. What are you going to do? What are you going to do with that? Except history can't be whitewashed, is the problem. So there is this belief in general historical circles that, and I'm going back and forth between what I wrote and what I'm saying here, that chattel slavery didn't exist until some say 1600s, others say 1750s. The problem is the different stages. First of all, the different types of slavery. Right? We've, as a society, kind of purified some of the types of slavery that were flat out called slavery a couple thousand years ago into things like, indentured servitude really isn't slavery. Or that type of crap. Things like apprenticeships actually evolved from early concepts of slavery. So no matter what, slavery has had some weird evolutions throughout human history. I mean, the word has been moved back and forth. This line has been moved back and forth between different aspects of different societies. So that's the first problem. The second problem is the more extreme types, which is what we consider to be slavery now. Most people usually only consider chattel slavery to be slavery or something similar. The problem is that the same type of slavery as I'm grouping a bunch of different types in here, different levels, depended on the type of industrialization. Slavery was industrialized. And then, like I said, some people tried to pacify the word, I guess, pacify what was going on. It's called child slavery, child workforce, right? Now we're calling it human trafficking. It's all fucking slavery. Right. So One of the biggest problems that I have is the claim of if white people didn't exist, the whole system, the whole industrialized system of slavery wouldn't have been developed. The reason why I have a problem with that is not because I'm white, it's because it's proclaiming that the white end of slavery was the majority of chattel slavery in the world, and it was not. I think at the height of the Spanish, Dutch, English, basically the East India Trading Company slavery that conquered the New World and conquered large portions of Africa. At the height, depending on the numbers you use, range between around 30% and 40% of the world's slavery at that point, at the time. See, the problem is you still have chattel slavery that was around before the 1600s, although it became progressively more industrialized. But the block and chain, the horrific abuses, that built the Ottoman Empire. And if we're going to be talking about who conquered the world after Rome fell apart, I mean, that area of the known world, the Ottoman Empire, the Ottomans were fucking huge. Do people not even remember that they existed for centuries? Centuries! My God. So let's talk about removing white people from the whole situation, right? I'm moving my hand around. Moving my hand around. You can't see it. I see him. I'm moving my hand around. Magically. Then we're going to have to talk about the Ottoman Empire and its influence growing from where it was, Eastern Europe, Mediterranean, that type of thing. Moving on up, because if we're going to wipe out the white influence, the white industrialization of slavery, what built the white empires, Spain, the Dutch, the English Empire, which reached out and spread across the globe. I mean, at one point, the sun never set in the English Empire or the British Empire, right? United Kingdom. If we're going to talk about that, and you remove all those influences, you remove the strength of the Spanish crown. That means if white people weren't using slavery to build their empire and they were removed from it, King Ferdinand of Aragon would not have assumed power. Which means that the Age of Lights, whatever they call it, that ended when he assumed power and basically created his own pogroms or whatever to kick out all the Jewish people, all the Muslim people. You would have had the Muslims and the Ottoman Empire. So let's say it's the only people left in control of the slave trade were the Ottomans. They would have come down. They would have easily conquered that entire area. And the Ottomans would have taken over that slave trade that they were participating in through Africa, even from the Far East. Let's now remove the English, remove the Dutch. No East India Trading Company. No industrialized slave trading base that the Parliament in England was getting kickbacks from. No benefiting the crown. English Empire suddenly shrinks. The sun does set in the English Empire. Ottomans are taking over that. Ottomans have control over the African slave trade. They continue to industrialize their control over slavery. And then do the Ottomans now discover the New World? Because people didn't think that the Earth was flat. Columbus uh, won his favor with the Queen and his contract with the Crown because he claimed that the Earth was round, but it was smaller than what other people said it was. So he banked on charging less. So he was like the used car salesman of the era. So you remove white people, nature abhors a vacuum. Who's controlling the slave trade? Well, you've got China, that's in the Far East. China was pretty huge, with their slave trade. And India. And so that means that the British aren't going to go into India to use their slave trade to conquer India. India slave trade starts growing. Ottomans start spreading out. You're still going to wind up with a massive slave trade from Africa. Now, does that excuse any of the actions taken by the white slavers in, for Britain, Spain, and Netherlands? No, it doesn't. And I'm not saying, oh, well, if white people weren't there, it would have been done anyway, so let's just forgive the white people who did it. No, I'm not fucking saying that at all. The white people who fucking enslaved all these people who participated in the slave trade, who participated in taking slaves from the interior of Africa, from the tribes in Africa, from the Ottomans, from, even as far as some of the slaves at the East India Trading Company, because they were more than just Africa. But anyway, you get my point. They're still responsible for their actions. So the problem is a bunch of these dipshits say, well, white people didn't invent it. Let's be real here. Okay? They then go on to say, so it's okay, so you can't be upset with the white Central Power, okay? No, you'd be upset with the white Central Power. That's the reason why we had a fucking civil war. We had every right to be upset. We had every right to fight. And those of us like my family, which some of them were very staunch abolitionists. One of them was a slave owner who had an epiphany and said, wait a second, this is wrong, manumitted his slaves. And then he and his slaves were chased out, and they had to run off to Utah, former slave, manumitted slaves, in order for everybody to be safe. Thank God he had an epiphany. I'm glad he realized it was wrong. He's still pretty much not a great guy, though. All right. Then there were other people that died in the Civil War in my family. Died for freedom. And they died because they knew slavery was wrong. So the white people that participated in slavery, and I probably have a couple of my family that thought slavery was okay, they were wrong. All right? And that's a problem here. You can't use, oh, well, white people didn't invent it, so it's okay. No. White people didn't invent it. And white people didn't perfect it either. So white people can't claim we're number one in anything, which is what white people like to do. Like, no matter what, we're number one, right? Yeah. First of all, that's not something you want to be number one in. Second of all, what the Ottomans did with their slave trade was fucking horrendous. But no matter how horrendous it was, no matter whether or not the white slave trade was worse or better or equal, it's slave trade. It's human trafficking. It was awful. And but the thing is, what a lot of people need to realize is that even though throughout history there were a lot of abolitionists, the concept that slavery shouldn't exist at all on a global scale is a relatively radical and new concept. 200 years out of the 10,000 years that we know for a fact organized slave trade existed. And slave trade still exists today, believe it or not. And it's still vulgar. It always has been vulgar. But the thing is, it takes a while for people to move forward. Moving forward means even though you acknowledge the past and acknowledge things like, the white people didn't invent it, you still also have to acknowledge, yeah, but the people who participated in it are fucking awful. All right? And the white people who participated in it and industrialized it clearly benefited from it in a major way. That's not good either, you know? That's not good either. But if people want to do purity tests on your forefathers or on society, there's nobody is ever going to surpass the purity test. And I'll tell you why. I'll tell you why nobody will ever surpass a purity test. Because if humanity is to survive, that means humanity has to constantly move forward, evolve, and be better than where humanity came from. That means that by that very nature of evolving and moving forward, no matter what, the people in the past, looking over my shoulder, the people in the past are always going to fail a purity test by modern standards. The moment they don't fail a purity test for modern standards is the moment we need to start fucking worrying every goddamn day. Okay? So the point is not to revile our collective history. The point is to recognize and move forward. Does that mean we forget? No. We recognize. Does that mean that we forgive horrible people? Depends on whether or not you believe in the concept of Christian forgiveness or Buddha's forgiveness or whatever. Can you be, and I say this knowing that I created a game called Punch Hitler, okay? The concept of forgiveness is one where you have to decide on what forgiveness means to you, whether or not you can move on. It's fun hating on really horrible people. It's fun punching Hitler. It's fun hating Hitler. But are you going to devote your life to it? Or are you going to move forward? Does that mean you're going to forgive these horrible people? Does that mean you're going to forgive the East India Trading Company? What do you mean by forgiveness, right? Are you going to keep hating on the former white power structure, or are you going to work to change the current white power structure that was built off of that horrible evil? Are you going to change the power structure of what's going on in India right now? I've got some friends in India. Let me tell you, there are things that need to be worked on. Are you going to change some of the power structures in some sections on the African continent? The genocide. It was, and let's call it what it was. There was a Holocaust that went on in Rwanda in the 90s. Modern day. It happened. So, as a human being, moving forward, concepts of forgiveness, of moving forward, of acceptance. Do you accept that evil is okay? No. No. Do you forgive an evil act in a way where it's okay that they did it? No. No. Do you say, well, I can't do anything about that now, except expose it, make sure it doesn't happen again, and move forward? How are we going to fix the power structure that was built off of horrible things? How are we going to fix that? That needs to be addressed. That needs to be addressed. It needs to be addressed as a society of people moving forward and coming together. Sometimes that means you're going to have to sit down with somebody you don't like. But sometimes that also means that the person you don't like, maybe they change. Maybe they become a good person. Maybe everybody can move forward. I don't know. See, there are a lot of uncomfortable questions. A lot of uncomfortable questions. There are a lot of uncomfortable facts. Like, I have no doubt in my mind that chattel slavery would have still expanded to the New World even if the white power structure didn't exist. That doesn't excuse the white power structure that did exist. Nature abhors a vacuum, but that doesn't mean that you can excuse what fills that vacuum. That's basically what I wanted to say. If you watch this whole video, thank you. Feel free to leave the comments. Remember that I'm talking a lot of generalizations. That means that there are going to be some that you can easily probably correct. I'll engage with you, talk with you. I just want to make it clear from the very beginning, or very end, because it's the very end. I'm not excusing things. I'm explaining some realities. Those realities are terrible. Oh, fun fact. Child slavery, let's call that what it was, child slavery, human trafficking. I try to tell people this as often as possible. A lot of the adoption laws that were built in Britain and in America, particularly the East Coast, like New York, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Chicago, where people couldn't open adoption records. Those shitty laws were created by people who were abducting children, adopting them out, and then, to make it legal, right? They put children in industrial warehouses where their tiny hands could fit through the machinery. Their tiny little quick hands could manipulate the machinery. Or their tiny little hands could be ripped off by the machinery. The first real change in those adoption laws didn't happen until like the 80s. And the show Unsolved Mysteries with their segments of lost loves. And then really challenged the idea of people looking for family that was adopted out. It didn't directly connect to the child labor laws, but it confronted, in a lot of lost loves instances, confronted the adoption system. And I will never forget this interview with this prosecutor, and I believe it was New York, about how the idea of Unsolved Mysteries challenging the adoption system. And how dare people who are adopted try to find their original families? How dare they confront and oppose these laws and these justices' orders? How dare they? And this one prosecutor was trying to figure out a way to sue Unsolved Mysteries. And that's been lost to time. Because righteousness won out. Righteousness of fighting against laws that were constructed to enslave children after trafficking them, kidnapping them, adopting them out, and letting them die, working in horrific conditions in these industrial facilities. These laws were challenged first by Unsolved Mysteries in like the most benign way. You watch an Unsolved Mysteries rerun, you won't even think about it. It won't even cross your mind. I only remember it because it's so vivid. The controversy over a couple of their episodes, and I think it was only like 3 or 4 of them. And that prosecutor threatening to sue a television company who was trying to help people connect with their family. Then you had private investigators confronting these adoption agencies, these adoption laws. And then you had 48 Hours. Then you had Nightline, Dateline, NBC, 2020. And slowly those adoption records started to get unsealed. Those laws started getting repealed. And quietly they went away. Just wanted to tell people slavery isn't over with. The effects of slavery last. The fight's not over. Every day you have to fight, because the last 200 years is an experiment. An experiment in the belief that man cannot and should not own another man or woman. Either way, woman should not own another man. Heck, you want to know something that should be really disturbing? I'm going to leave you with this thought. People keep talking about Thomas Jefferson was the devil for owning Sally Hemings, the half-sister of his wife, back in an era where when a woman married a man, she became his property legally, which is why in a lot of states women were not allowed to own property. A lot of people forget that. When you entered marriage up until maybe 150 years ago or whatever, when this country was forged, when this country was formed, when a woman entered a marriage, she became property to her husband. Not true anymore. Thank God. Not in this country. In some other countries, yes, it's still true. So when I say freedom and no slavery is we're like a pilot program. Let's try to make it the norm around the world. And don't give white slavers a free pass, right? When you're talking about history, yeah, it is true. White power base didn't invent slavery, nor did it create the best slavery in the world. But it did participate, and it did enjoy the fruits of the labors of others. So, yeah, when you talk about, but the whites didn't create slavery, don't use it to excuse them, okay? Don't, please, because it just makes you sound stupid. The white power base that created slavery, a lot of that white power base still exists today, and it still needs to be pushed back and taken down.